Hi, today I'm going to teach you how to make this beautiful bag, so let's get started. So here's what you'll need. You'll need 200 grams of one color, which is approximately half a pound, and 200 grams of another color. Now, I used t-shirt yarn. Mine specifically was made of polyester. There's others that are made of cotton. Cotton ones are very hard to find and they're very expensive. Even the polyester one, you cannot buy it in stores, at least in Canada. So what you can do is order it online, or I'd say you can even use a simple yarn, just buy more skeins of it and combine them together. For example, work with 4 or 5 threads at the same time. You can even choose 5 different colors. It's up to your imagination. Now for the hooks, I used a hook size 9 and a hook size 5.5. The second hook we need when we're going to combine the bags, because basically the thread, the yarn, is very thick, so you will not be able to connect the parts using the same hook. At the same time, this is basically what I found at home, so you can try different sizes that you maybe already have at home. For example, if you have a size 9.5 or 8.5 or even 8 might work maybe, you can try them. Or for the second hook, you can have an even 5.0 hook or a 4.5. Just try them, and if you're comfortable with using them, you don't need to buy a specific one. Here I have a small pattern. Each side of the bag will be made of 14 rows, each made of 15 single crochets. The slip stitches on the sides and at the bottom represent how we're going to combine the two sides of the bag. Whenever I make a square bag, I like to add 2 additional slip stitches at the bottom in the corners. I feel that this gives a more defined look to the bag, and it makes it look more square. So let's get started by making the slip knot. I know a lot of people have different styles of making the slip knot. This is how I do it. I just basically do 2 chains, one after the other, and then I just pull the thread and make the knot. So I hook the yarn, pull it through the loop, and then I just repeat the process one more time. Hook the yarn, pull it through the loop, and just pull the thread to form the knot. In case you're a beginner and this looks too confusing for you, you can just always make a simple knot with your hands. So after doing the slip knot, we're going to chain 15. Hook the yarn and just pull it through the loop. And you have 1 chain. You repeat this for 15 chains. Hook the yarn, take it and pull it through the loop. We're going to chain 15 and 1 at the end. We always chain 1 at the end for the height, because basically if you would do only 15 chains, that would mean that you only have 14 columns in your bag on the side of the bag. Whenever your number is, for example, 15, you'll always chain 1 extra. So when we're done chaining 16, we're gonna start working on the rows from the back in the second stage, because remember the first one was for the height. Put the hook into the second stitch in the back. Hook the yarn, pull it through this stitch, and then you'll pull the yarn through both of these stitches. So now you're done with your first single crochet. You're basically gonna do the same thing until the end of the row, working only with the back stitches. You could work with the front stitches as well, but it will be easier when you're gonna connect the sides, because the stitches are gonna be defined and it will be easier to connect them, basically easier to see them and hook the yarn into them. We're going to continue doing the same thing until the end of the row. Now, if you're a beginner, I would advise you at the beginning, before you start the bag, to do as many chains as possible. Just practice the chains and then do a single crochet in every one of these chains. Like, do a lot of them just to kind of teach your brain and your hand how to do them, so you do them mindlessly, because at the beginning you could maybe see that they're not the same size like your stitches. So in order to be better at it, just practice. So now we're gonna do the last single crochet from this row, and after that, just please count them. Just make sure that you have 15 single crochets in this row. And especially if you're a beginner, just count them after every single row that you do. Now I'm gonna teach you how I hide the beginning of the yarn that I started with. It's up to you whether to hide it now or later, or what do you want to do with it. Me personally, I prefer to hide it so I forget about it. After each row, we're gonna chain one. So I'm gonna chain one before hiding this piece of yarn. Now, to hide it, we're going to go into the last stitch, not the chain one that we did, but into the last one, in the 15th one. We're going to bring the yarn to the back, because every row that you make, you're going to finish it, make the hide chain, and turn your work and work from the back. So you'll always work from right to left. We start doing single crochets from the second one, not the height one, so you'll always have 15 single crochets in each row. To hide this piece of yarn while doing the single crochets, you're just gonna hook it and bring it with you. Try to hold it with your fingers so it doesn't go into the back or into the front. And make sure you hide it entirely. Even if you don't, that's okay. You can always use your other hook, the smallest one, so you can hide it in the back. I'll show it to you. Working with t-shirt yarn is a bit hard on your fingers, so sometimes where I wanted to really hide a piece of yarn, I would do it and redo it until I hide it, because I wanted the stitches to be fixed so the hidden yarn doesn't escape. So now you're going to continue doing single crochets by the end of the row until the end of the row, and then you're going to chain one. You'll turn the work and start with single crochets again. Basically, you're going to do 14 rows. Once again, make sure you count them. Make sure after every row you have 15 single crochets in every one of your rows. I'm not gonna speed up this part. I'm gonna show you a couple of more stitches that I do, in case you want to see one more time how I chain one at the end and then turn the work and then continue. But basically this is the whole process for making the side of the bag. If you feel comfortable, you can fast forward this part, because next I'm going to show you how to attach the yarn in case one of your skis is done, in case you have to change the skein. So because I've made this bag out of leftovers, I had to reattach the pink yarn at one moment because it was finished, so I basically just hold it with my hands and continue doing the same thing. It can be kind of hard attaching the new yarn, especially when you work with multiple colors and hiding the tip, the end of the yarn at the same time. So just focus on attaching the new yarn and you can hide the tips at the end. It's okay. To hide this piece of yarn, we're gonna use the small hook that we have and basically just pull it through the single crochets from the rows. Try to make it as seamless as possible because at this point you're not sure whether this is gonna be the face or the back of your bag, so make sure to make it as seamless as possible. The advantage of having multiple colors is that it's gonna be seamless. You're not gonna see it because the colors are so mixed and chaotic that it's gonna be okay. This is why I love this bag for beginners, because you cannot mess it up. Even if you mess up something, nobody will see it because of these dynamic colors. After you're done hiding the yarn, just cut the tip off. If the tip was short from the beginning, just try to hide it entirely. If it was long, you'll have to cut it at the moment because it will be the process of hiding it. It's gonna take too long. After you did the 14 rows, cut the yarn, pull the yarn, and start working on the second side of the bag. Basically do the same thing. Once again, you can hide the end of your yarn or not, it's up to you. You'll hide it anyway, even if it's now or it's at the end, you'll have to do it anyway. I know it's a tedious process. Personally, I hate it. If I would have one superpower in this world, it will be for all of these ends to hide into the work on their own. Now we're going to work on the handle. Keep in mind that the part of the handle is also the bottom of the bag. So in case you want to make the handle longer, keep this in mind, please. To make the handle, we're going to do the slip knot and chain 2. We're going to have 2 single crochets in each row. The handle is going to have 85 rows. So basically 85 rows with 2 single crochets in each row. Please remember that you have to chain 1 before turning the work and continuing with the next row. After you did the 85 rows for the handle, we're gonna sew the ends together. We're gonna use the small crochet to sew them. We'll cut the yarn and pull the thread, kind of like finishing it. Next, we're gonna put the two ends together. The end with the thread in the back and the other one in the front. Then we're gonna push the hook into both kind of like walls of this handle, and we're gonna pull it in front of us, and we'll repeat the process 3 or 4 times. It depends how and where you inserted the hook, until you see that they're connected. So now that we're done attaching the side of the handle, we're ready combining all of the parts together. We're gonna start connecting the first side of the bag to the handle from the left. We'll have to reattach the yarn. Make sure you count all of the stitches that you have, and make sure that your first slip stitch, because we're gonna use the slip stitches to connect the parts, make sure you don't put it in the first stitch of your row. Make sure you always keep 15 there. Just hook the yarn into the side, attach the new yarn into the side. So as to attach the yarn, we'll have to push the hook into both of the sides and just pull the yarn towards us. As I said, we're going to use slip stitches to attach the parts. Now, a slip stitch is basically the same thing as a single crochet, only that you don't pull the yarn through the last 2 loops on your hook. You just pull the last loop through the first one. As you can see, the sides don't have such defined stitches, so just make sure you always insert the hook, for example, into the first on the side of the bag and into the first on in the handle of the bag. You continue by doing the same thing. You just have to make sure that you don't lose a stitch on the way. Just like I said at the beginning, on the sides we have 14 slip stitches, just like the number of the rows. There's a probability that you won't see your first slip stitch because you attached the yarn there, but just make sure you count them. Before proceeding with the bottom, we're gonna count the 15 stitches at the bottom, and we're gonna insert the hook not in the first one but in the corner, because we're gonna do one extra slip stitch in each corner of the bag at the bottom. After doing this extra slip stitch in the corner, we're gonna proceed with the bottom of the bag. We're gonna do the same thing as on the side. Here you can see why we did the single crochets at the beginning in the back of the chain, because you can actually see the stitches and count them compared to the stitches of the handle. Continue with slip stitches until the end. We're doing the last slip stitch of the bottom, and before continuing with the last side of the bag, remember that we have to do the additional slip stitch in the corner. Compared to the first one, this was a thick knot, so take your time to make this slip stitch. Before continuing, count the 14 stitches on the side to make sure you did everything correctly. When attaching the first side of the bag, you're basically doing whatever you want in perspective when compared to the second side, because when you'll attach the second side, it's not gonna be that easy. You'll have to count every stitch. You'll have to be aware of your every step, because it will be so easy to mess up. Continue connecting the parts with slip stitches until the end of the row. After doing the 14th slip stitch of this side, we will cut the yarn and finish the work. To make it seem like we didn't cut the yarn but the stitches magically connected, we're gonna insert the yarn into the first of the chain of the side, as you can see in the video, and pull it back into the chain where we started. Now what you can do is just hide the yarn in the back and leave it like this. Or you could connect the side to the handle even more and make it look more square. I'm gonna show it to you with the other side. We're gonna use the beginning of the yarn that we attached in case you didn't hide it. But as I said, this is completely optional. I just wanted to make it super square. So what I'm doing is bringing the yarn forward and pushing it back again. Like I'm basically sewing the side with the handle. I will do the same thing with the right side just to make them even. So, congratulations, you attached one side of the bag. Basically, most of the work is done. You only have to attach the second part now. Before touching the second part, as I said before, this is gonna be a bit harder because you can't mess up where you start attaching it. Just keep in mind that you have 45 slip stitches, 14 on each of the side and 17 at the bottom. Use the first slip stitch of the side that you just made to find and stitch mark where the second side will end. Just make sure they're parallel and on the same level. And from this stitch you will count 45 stitches to find where we will attach the second side of the bag. Again, I'm not gonna fast forward this part, you can do it yourself. I'm just keeping this for people who want to see where exactly I am gonna stitch mark where I begin. After you stitch marked the beginning and the end of the second side, we will do the same thing that we did with the first side. As you can see, I had a little helper here, so I had to start from the beginning. As with the first side, we will attach the yarn onto the side and make 14 slip stitches on this side, one extra in the corner, and then 15 at the bottom, one extra at the corner, and 14 onto the second side. After you're done connecting the parts together, cut the yarn and don't forget about the fake slip stitch that we're doing at the end of the work. Also play around with the tips of the yarn from the sides to look the bag more square, just as we did with the first side of the bag. So here it is. I hope the tutorial was clear and you succeeded doing this bag. Thanks a lot for watching.